Before he turned 21, Frank William Abagnale Jr. had assumed the identities of an airline pilot, a doctor, and a lawyer, none of which he was qualified for. By the end of his teenage years, he had forged checks worth over $2.5 million across more than a dozen countries. His story has fascinated the world for decades, inspiring Steven Spielberg's film Catch Me If You Can. But beyond the Hollywood glamour lies a tale of deception, desperation, and eventual redemption. This is the true story of Frank Abagnale, from power to prison and back again. Frank was born in 1948 in Bronxville, New York. He was the third of 4 children and had a relatively stable upbringing. However, when he was just 16, his parents divorced. This event had a profound impact on him. Caught in a legal battle, Frank was forced to choose between his mother and father in court, a moment he would later describe as the turning point in his life. Feeling heartbroken and rootless, he ran away from home, seeking independence but quickly ran out of money. That's when he began experimenting with fraud. His earliest cons involved misusing a gasoline credit card given to him by his father. He tricked gas station attendants into giving him cash and merchandise in exchange for false charges. But Frank's ambition soon outgrew petty fraud. He discovered that forging checks wasn't just easy. It was almost undetectable at the time, given the lack of modern banking security. He began printing his own fake checks and manipulating bank routing codes. His charisma and confidence made people overlook the gaps in his credentials. One day, while watching airline pilots walk through an airport, Frank noticed how much respect and access they commanded. He posed as a Pan Am pilot by acquiring a uniform through a phone call, claiming he had lost his. He forged an employee ID and began flying around the country and internationally by exploiting the airline's deadheading policy, which allowed off-duty pilots to hitch rides in cockpits. He didn't fly the planes himself, but he stayed close enough to the crew to learn the jargon and appear legitimate. Pan Am later confirmed that he never appeared on their official records, but the impersonation cost them and their partners significant embarrassment. After tiring of the airline lifestyle, Frank decided to try something new. He moved to Georgia and on a whim, posed as a pediatrician. He used the alias Frank Connors and claimed to be a Columbia University graduate. He was even hired as a supervising resident at a local hospital. While Frank never treated patients directly, he worked night shifts and largely supervised interns and administrative tasks. According to his own account, he faked his way through 11 months of medical employment before resigning after nearly causing harm to a baby during a medical emergency. A close call that spooked him. His next act was in Louisiana, where he impersonated a Harvard Law School graduate. Frank says he obtained a copy of the bar exam and passed it after 3 attempts, using legal textbooks and sheer memory. He was hired by the state attorney general's office under the name Robert Black. However, no public records confirm that he actually passed the Louisiana bar exam, and some critics believe this part of his story may be exaggerated. Still, Frank maintained the ruse long enough to be accepted by real lawyers, which underscores his extraordinary talent for mimicry and manipulation. Throughout all of this, Frank's main source of income was forged checks. He developed advanced techniques, such as using magnetic ink to bypass bank verification systems. He posed as various professionals, opened bank accounts with fake documents, and often deposited checks just before closing time on Fridays, knowing banks couldn't verify them until Monday. His cons extended to 26 countries, and he was pursued by authorities in several of them. Eventually, his time ran out. In 1969, he was apprehended in Montpellier, France, after a flight attendant, whom he had once dated, recognized him and alerted the police. He was arrested and spent 6 months in a brutal French prison before being extradited to Sweden and eventually to the United States. At just 21 years old, Frank had become one of the most wanted con artists in the world. In the U cell, he was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison for multiple counts of fraud. He served about 5 years before the FBI offered him a deal. In exchange for early release, he would use his expertise to help the Bureau detect and prevent white-collar crimes. Frank accepted and began a second life, this time on the right side of the law. He went on to consult for the FBI for over 4 decades, working without pay, according to his own statements. He also founded his own financial fraud consulting firm, Abagnale & Associates, which advised corporations and financial institutions on how to safeguard against fraud. His contributions to fraud detection and prevention are widely acknowledged even by skeptics. In 2002, Catch Me If You Can brought his story to a global audience. Leonardo DiCaprio portrayed him as a suave, misunderstood genius. While the film was based on Frank's own autobiography, many journalists and researchers have since questioned the accuracy of certain claims. Investigations by journalists like Alan C. Logan suggest that parts of Frank's story, particularly his time as a doctor and lawyer, may have been fabricated, or at least embellished. Still, Frank has defended his account, arguing that he told the truth as he remembered it. Regardless of where the full truth lies, the story of Frank Abagnale remains one of the most compelling in modern history. His transformation from teenage criminal to trusted FBI consultant speaks to both the danger of unchecked intelligence and the possibility of redemption. He didn't use weapons, he didn't inflict violence, but he used psychology, charm, and daring to exploit the cracks in society and later help seal them. Frank Abagnale's story is a mirror. To some, it reflects a brilliant mind who went astray and then found purpose. To others, it's a warning about how easily appearances can deceive. Either way, his life continues to captivate the public imagination. So, what do you think? Was Frank Abagnale a criminal genius with a conscience, or just a storyteller who knew how to spin a great myth? Let us know in the comments. And if you're interested in more true stories like this about deception, redemption, and human complexity, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more.